Chapter 24. A Bridge Divided. Hella recoiled. That's not funny. Whatever you're after, I'm not interested. You're not my dad. He's dead. He died in Epōle. Did your mother tell you that? The man asked. I suppose I might as well be. I'm done playing this game. Hella turned on her heel. Goodbye. As she turned to catch up to the others, the man called out, or was it Godin who said that? Hella froze. No one from outside Call 19 knew Godin. How does this stranger know his name? It couldn't actually be him. My dad? It's not possible. The man frowned at her reaction. We didn't get on much, you know. The only thing we shared besides Call 19 was the secret ability to wield our flames. Hella turned back at the man, lit her flame in a burst, and blasted at him. She lifted him off the ground, carried him down an alley, and slammed him into a wall. She dropped her flame so as not to draw attention to herself, then took a step back. You! She gritted. If you are who you say you are, you're better off dead than walking up to me in the hall horn. It'd be safer. The man stammered between wheezing breaths as Hella pinned him against the wall. I'm not done, Hella interrupted. Forget about Mom, who you abandoned. Forget about me and Senna, who you barely know. Farah is out there. If she knew who you were, real or not, she would slaughter you where you stand. And she should. You see that No, you shut your mouth. This isn't a conversation. Even if I believed you were my dad, what would give you the right to speak to your kids who had to grow up without you? Who were there when your wife died and you weren't? No, go crawl back under whatever slimy rock you've been hiding for the past 10 years and forget about ever being a father to me or Senna. That's not gonna happen. The man's mouth hung open, tears welling in his eyes. Hella had said her piece and was ready to leave him there in a sniveling mess when he said one more thing. Senna, I had never met my boy. Please, just let me meet my son. He doesn't even need to know who I am. Please, I'm begging you, Hella. I never got to meet him. She drew near, putting her face close to his. And you never will. At that, the man dropped to his knees and wept openly. Hella scoffed, then left him in the alley to catch up to the rest. When she came back out to the main street, Senna spotted her and called, Hella, over here! I was looking for you. Where did you go? Sorry, I'll catch up to you. I thought I saw someone I knew. I was wrong. After another wonderful meal courtesy of Ardeen, Hella and Farah sat on the deck of the guest house watching the sun sink below the horizon. Hella was mostly just waiting out the minutes left in the day before it was time to rejoin the other Thutan raiders after this evening's recitations. She could tell that Farah had thoughts on her mind, though none of them were making it out of her mouth. Off in the distance, Fald was speaking with his dad in the main house while Senna was in his room, alone. Until recently, the impending assault on Epōle had occupied Hella's mind. Now, all she could think of was leaving Senna alone in Erunt with that man, their so-called father. She meant what she said. She would never allow him to meet her brother. Senna's heart was too forgiving. He would accept whatever excuse that man gave for his absence and absolve him of what was an unforgivable sin. Farah? Hella spoke up, breaking the thick silence. Yeah, what's up? I've been thinking. She hesitated, then forced her thought out into the world. I was wrong about Finn not coming with us. Really? Farah asked. Are you serious? Well, it's obvious we're nowhere near as big a team as Scatter or Adun wanted. And Senna did so well in the tournaments, surprisingly well. Maybe I'm too protective of him. He was the one who volunteered to join us, just like Fald. It was rude of me to back Fald coming and not Finn. We're all fighting for the same goal here, and I think he'd be better off with us than sitting here wishing he'd come along. What do you think? Farah leaned back in her chair. I mean, he's your brother, she blurted. Who am I to say he's not ready after that tournament? None of us were ready before we had to fight Rains with our flames. If Finn wants to come and Adun lets him like he did with Fald, I guess why not? Hella's chin dipped. She felt ashamed knowing she only wanted Senna with her to keep him from their dad. Nonetheless, she had started the process and had to see it through. She called into the house from the deck. "Hey, Finn! Come out here! I want to ask you something about the assault on Epōle." Senna hopped off his bed and hurried down the hall out onto the deck. "What do you want to know?" he asked. She looked at him, so small yet oddly mature. The Hela from 2 weeks ago wouldn't even have recognized him. "Finn," she started, taking a deep breath before finishing her question. "Do you still want to join the raid?" Night fell over the Hullhorn, and the Theutons of Arunt gathered as usual around the altar of origin for their Watcher's recitations. Only this time, Arunt's Watcher of the Unbroken Binds would recite a prayer of proclamation for the raiders who were bound for Epōle afterward. Raising his hands, Adun spoke. "All ye children of Grom, be thee observant!" Those in attendance sat down and quieted themselves. "This night marks a perilous moment in Theuton history. It shall be remembered by Watchers as an inflection in the struggle of Grom's children against the servants of Sol. Verily, nigh 2 years prior, an action group of fire-starters set forth to infiltrate the wicked city of Epōle. Thanks to their efforts, we of the Hullhorn have a rare chance to strike right at the heart of Sol. This very night, a newly selected team of Theuton raiders shall set out with this in mind. They take with them the very will of Grom and the hope of her stolen. Therefore, tonight's recitations shall be replaced by a declaration. It is an ancient declaration reserved for such dire times as these. For we, in this very moment, are the noble, the valiant, and the righteous. Future generations shall sing songs of us. We, the observant of Holy Grom, do risk our freedom and our lives for the freedom and the lives of those in bondage to the torture of malevolent Sol." Hela's face twisted at the irony in Adun's words, knowing they could count their Hullhorn helpers on one hand. At the same time, she was proud that half the raiders were called Theutons. That Cull 19 would commit as many fighters as the entire Hullhorn of the Free. Adun continued, "Thusly, due to the grave profundity of this moment, we make our declaration against evil Sol as the steadfast servants of Holy Grom with the exhortation of chastening." The fire of the altar lowered to a simmer while Adun's unvanquished flame rose to dominate the light in the town circle. He began a low, guttural hum, then widened his eyes into a trance-like gaze as he invoked the declaration. "Evermore be thee reviled for thy iniquity, O blasphemers! Evermore requite thy souls unto damnation for the blood of the innocent! Evermore be thee felled beneath the wrath of flames by the raging sorrow of your oppressed, by the blinding immolation thou hath wrought of thine own dark acts. Ye shall drink of the bitter despair, sink in its desolate mire, and drown beneath the doom of your own vile iniquity. Evermore! Evermore! Evermore!" At the end of the declaration, all the gathered intoned, "Grom's love!" After the nightly gathering, Adun brought all the raiders together in his small study near the town circle. Before the final strategy meeting began, Hela stood up to address the Watcher's obvious first question. Young Senna, why are you with us?" Adun asked. "This meeting is only for those who will be departing for the assault on Epōle." Hela spoke up for her little brother before he could reply. "He's with me. He's gonna be coming along with me on the raid." "Whoa now, little miss," Scatter said. "We've already decided this isn't an appropriate mission for Finn. In fact, if I recall, it was you who made that point earlier today." "I did. I was wrong. He's coming with me or I'm not going." Everyone but Farah flinched at Hella's change of heart and the non-negotiable way she said it. "Why do you feel this way, my dear?" Adun questioned. "I reconsidered my position. While everyone was thinking about strategy, I was only thinking about Senna. He deserves to come. It was his home too, and he wants to help the cult. I was wrong, and he's coming now. End of discussion." "Who'd have thought an avatar would be so fiery?" Fald joked. "I, for one, would be happy to have Finn ride along. He may be new to the flame, but he's already better at wielding than the majority of a runt. Let the kid crack some Rayan heads, why not?" "Because he hasn't received Grom's blessing!" Adun shot back. "You've already brought an aspect of uncertain fortune to this effort, Fald. I'm not keen to test our holy matron's grace any further. We may not get another opportunity like this for generations. This mission needs to be flawless." "Adun," Scatter spoke up, "I understand your ambivalence, old friend. I, perhaps more than most people on this team, understand how perfect this window is. Carter and myself worked in the belly of the beast for 2 years to achieve it. All that aside, I would welcome Senna's help on this raid. Partly, as young Red over here has pointed out, because we need more flames, and also because I know Miss Hela well enough to believe she won't move without him. Although she may not be a warrior, you must understand how important it is to have the Avatar strike at the heart of soul alongside us." Adun stood in silence for a moment. Finally, he responded. "So be it, then. I am powerless in this matter. Perhaps that is the will of Grom itself. Who am I to say? Senna of Kull may also join this most important of assaults on Epōle." Senna grabbed his sister's hand and squeezed it in triumph, shooting a smile up at her smug face. "Now then," Adun digressed, "what of the strategy for the assault? Carter, Scatter, Farah, what have our fire starters devised?" Carter cleared his throat. "I have a 3-phase order of attack with a built-in contingency plan." The others cocked their heads, listening. Carter continued. "Up until the addition of Senna, we each had our own hullhounds." "He'll ride with me," Hela interrupted. "It's not a problem." "Very good," Carter replied, carrying on. "With 5 hounds, we can adjust our form both ingress and egress in a situationally dependent manner. For example, when it comes to the initial insurgents into the range of Thut, we would do well to stagger both our timing and location of the crossing. Due to our overuse of crossing the outer wall in singular bursts, I expect there to be a Rayan response tactic on standby for singular events. I suggest that we overwhelm and confuse this response by crossing at differing locations in a time-staggered manner of 1 or 2 minutes. This will give their prepared response enough time to activate, but too long to react to any other impending crossings." "Well then," Scatter added, "who's going to be the first unlucky one over the wall?" "None of us," Carter replied. Carter turned to Fald. "How many hounds can you and Hearn direct under your command?" 5, easily. 8 in a pinch." "Excellent. We'll need to borrow a group of 5 from your father. We won't require them beyond spanning the outer wall. Their job is to trip Epōle's initial response. After that reaction is confirmed, they'll leap back down from their initial position and run off to wait for our return. You'll need to remain proximal enough to provide sufficient flame for them to scale the wall, then jump back down, but after that we'll each make our own incursion at varying locations along the southeastern and southwestern wall. That will get us in and serve as part 1 of the strategy." Everyone just stared, entranced by Carter's plan at this point. So, he continued explaining the strategy. "Part 2. We'll all meet halfway across the range of Thut at the old cabin in the woods, but we won't be staying there for long. Once we've regrouped, we'll change our angle of ingress from the southern quarter to the eastern one. By my estimation, we should be able to travel from the cabin to the far east of the range in time for sunrise. This will illuminate our entrance, but also obscure us from anyone inside of Epōle as it puts the sun at our back. The window that the Acolyte has granted us begins at sunrise. We have 12 minutes at that point to make a straight dash down the roof of the main eastern causeway. There is apparently a guard change that happens in all grids at sunrise between the night peacemen and their daytime contingent. The Acolyte will synchronize our Aspirite-free time window based on this. In theory, we'll have no Rayan eyes or gems to contend with all the way to the inner round. And that will conclude the 2nd phase of our mission." The mesmerized stares continued. "The ultimate phase, phase 3 of our assault, will time with the Rayan sacrificial ceremony. It'll be the most important and the riskiest part of the mission, and this is where the contingency portion of the plan may get enacted. The crux of the assault depends on us getting to and overcharging the Thooten sacrifice chosen by the Order of Peace. We'll either get to them or we won't. If we are successful, then we'll exfiltrate as quickly as possible before the explosion. If we fail, we'll release the hounds. Fald smirked at that suggestion, while Carta continued. I don't care how many troopers they bring to bear, no one can deal with 5 of the most powerful, lethal hull hounds at the same time. They'll cause sufficient chaos to give us the latitude to rain lightning orbs down on the surrounding area. Between the hounds and our barrage, we'll still be able to annihilate many of the higher stalwarts of the Order of Peace. Why do we have to kill the Thooten sacrifice at all if we can just do that? Hela asked. It makes no sense. Scatter raised his hand. If I may, Carta. Of course. Do you remember the Battle of Cull 19, Hela? Gordon and I caused some damage while using lightning orbs as projectiles, but it was nothing compared to what Gordon did when he went up to Grom. There's just no comparison. That's correct, Carta confirmed. The goal is maximum destruction. The contingency plan will disrupt Epōle's political infrastructure but do very little to the functional infrastructure of the city. It wouldn't be nothing, but we can only truly free the cult if we destroy the city that holds them. Hela wanted to argue further, but images of the explosion that had leveled Cull 19 filled her head. There was no way she could disagree with their assessment. Dear Carta, Adun spoke up, this sounds like a well-constructed strategy. What would you say are your chances of success, of achieving the primary objective? That will depend on 2 things, Watcher. First is if we can get to the sacrifice before they kill them. This is an uncertain variable. From what I understand, the ceremony is supposed to align with the rising sun, so our arrival will either be just after or just before the actual sacrifice. Second, if we get there in time to overcharge the sacrifice, our ability to do so depends on how well we can hold off their defensive reactions while we do. But considering the force we're bringing to bear, I'm confident enough to risk my life on it. Hela remained unconvinced and worried. Each of them was already willing to risk their lives before Carta ever divulged his plan. In that case, Adun said, may the will of Grom outweigh that of our adversaries. Everyone present intoned, Grom's love. If you're satisfied, my dear Watcher, Scatter said, we are to head out. The sun has only been down an hour, which means we can still reach Staunt with a few hours to spare. Everyone needs a good sleep before departing for the outer wall. Give me 15 minutes to gather the extra hull hounds, Fald said, and I'll meet you at the front gates. So be it, Adun said. The fate of the Cull is now entwined with the doom of Epōle. Fire starters and raiders alike, bring the wrath of Grom with you into that abominable city. With that proclamation, the first major offensive in 3 generations began. Hela understood its outcome placed no less than the fate of every culled Thooten of Epōle up for wager. The descent down the Hullhorn was nothing like the ascent that had first brought Hela to Arunt. The tenacity and grace of the hounds was no less impressive as it was on the way up, but in this direction they had the advantage of gravity. They moved in unison down the night-blackened, jagged face of the mountainside, each jockeying for the lead. Between the exhilaration of the ride and the quasi-competitive nature of the journey, it shocked Hela how soon she saw the lights of Staunt, the fortress entrance to the Hullhorn, appear through the tree line ahead. Something else surprised her as they closed in on the city. Unlike her first approach, this time she could sense the flame of Crod, the old night watchman. She could sense that Drom also recognized his flame, almost like she could smell it through his nose. In just a few short weeks, she had made some serious strides toward mastering the unvanquished flame. That old bat is waiting for us, Scatter shouted. Won't he be surprised to see our team? Hela could tell that Scatter was trying to raise the spirits of the team, but she also knew that they only had 2 more Thootens and half a dozen more hounds than before. It was hardly an imposing force that would strike fear into their enemy. If she were Crod, she'd be wondering where the rest of the 13 tribes were. As ready as her heart was to wreak destruction upon the city of Epōle, she couldn't help but feel that Thoot, the first avatar, would have been ashamed of his descendants. Suddenly, the tree line opened up and revealed their first destination. Despite the late hour, every building was alight. The fortress of Staunt seemed meant for the night, as if to say, the Hall Horn does not sleep. "They sent your hideous hide back to us, eh?" shouted the familiar, sarcastic voice of Crod from the town street. "Carter, did you hear that?" Scatter yelled. "It sounded like a bat, but much uglier." "Bah! You should be so lucky to look as dapper as I by my tender age, you leather-necked oaf," the old-timer retorted. "Hand to Grom," Scatter replied. "I hope to be long dead before I reach half of your preposterous age." The two closed the distance and grasped each other by the shoulders, roaring with laughter. "Just don't let any of them rain rats be the ones to kill you is all I care to say about that," Crod added. "Quite the contrary, my dear owl. I plan to be the one dealing death to them in short order." Scatter motioned to the rest of the raiding party behind him. "Short order, you say?" Crod queried, his eyes gleaming. "Indeed, but I'm afraid we don't have time to detail it all tonight. We're on a very tight timeline and require your beds for a vital respite." Crod's face fell. "But fear not, my fine ghoul," Scatter continued. "If all goes to plan, we'll be returning soon with more gory tales of ray and slaughter than even your appetite could handle." At that, the old guard perked up like a hound at the promise of cooked meat. All right then, let's see us to your pillows, I says. All ears, follow my handsome lead this way." Crod led the team to a traveler's lodge and their hounds to the back of the mess hall. He fed the animals scraps of meat from the evening meal, then put aside food for his guests to take with them come the morning. When the morning sun broke over Staunt, all the raiders roused themselves of their own accord. They were all too aware of what lay ahead of them as, by this time the next day, they would be breaching the heart of the most dangerous place in the world for the Thutan people. Crod was already standing in the street, tapping his foot when they exited the traveler's lodge to find their hounds. "There you are! About time!" he croaked. "So much for your beauty sleep, eh? You poor beggar! You wouldn't even know what one was if it knocked you over, my dear wrinkled old gargoyle," Scatter retorted with a grin. "Ah, that I was to join you in the foray ahead. I'd become 20 years younger after crushing some rayin' skulls, I would. Bringing you back to your, 150s? Scatter continued to prod. "But we go in part to free not only the cold, but the good people of Staunt from the bondage that stays their feet. Soon, dear Night Owl, you will have free rein to effect your just vengeance upon every fleeing rain that remains after the emancipation of the cold." Grasping Scatter by the shoulder, Crod gave a devilish smile. "May Grom see it done, fire started." At that, each of the raiding Thutans mounted their hull hounds and followed Scatter and Cartha out through the gates of the Hull Horn toward the outer walls of the Rayan Empire and retribution for their people. Scatter's Journal. Our proud people have become a caricature of their ancestors. A once fearsome race of warriors have become little more than bickering tribes full of cowardly hill folk. How ironic that the most valiant Thutans of our era reside amongst those who cannot even fight back, namely, the cold and the stanchions. Were it in my power to pardon them, the latter would be the first on the warpath to Epōle, I have no doubt. Sometimes I wonder what our forebearers would think of the fine mess we've left their descendants.